I went through every signature move looking for the worst one for each of the 18 types. While a lot of signature moves are great, some Pokemon would never be caught using theirs. To define what I'm considering a signature move is, I will list a couple criteria. Preferably, only one line of Pokemon should be able to learn this move in most situations. I will be flexible on multiple generation signature moves that may have had another Pokemon learn it, or if another Mon gets it as an event move, but it has to have been a signature move when released. And Smeargle doesn't count as it can learn pretty much every move. We have to also consider how useful the move is to the Pokemon who gets it. Do they have a lot of better options in their move pool to use? This is mostly looking at the moves competitively, but in-game usefulness will be considered to an extent as well. With the framework set, let's get into our first typing. I'm going to start it off with the moves that inspired this video. It is a pair of normal type moves. First, we have Exeggutor's terrible signature move, Barrage, a 15 base power multi-hit move with 85% accuracy. This move was so bad that they didn't even include it in the most recent generation of games, but before that, it was a level 1 move on Exeggcute. If you look at the Egg's level up movesets in early generations, you'll see they pretty much had to rely on this weak non-stab move for a while until they could find some TMs to replace it. This move is terrible even by Gen 1 and multi-strike move standards. It didn't get the accuracy buff that others received in Generation 5. It has a lower base power than other normal type multi-strike moves like Tail Slap and Comet Punch. And funnily enough, it is even worse than Double Slap. They have all the same properties, but Barrage is blocked by the ability Bulletproof. Its competition is the Porygon line's signature move Conversion 2. The original conversion found use on Porygon Z as a Z move, giving it an Omni boost and changing its typing to correspond with the first move in its move slot. Its sequel, however, didn't really have much value. Conversion 2 will change Porygon's typing randomly to resist or be immune to the last damaging move it was hit by. So if you were hit by a ground type move, you will randomly become a flying, grass, or bug type. It's pretty much just Kecleon's color change ability, but instead you have to use a move slot and your turn to use it. I don't like how it doesn't automatically change your type to be immune if applicable. It also isn't very practical, as Porygon 2 would be the only one who could maybe see some use out of it, and at 60 base speed, it wouldn't be able to take advantage of the defensive upsides this would provide. It would also need to sacrifice a valuable move slot for a move not very practical at all. As bad as both of these moves are, I have to give the title of worst to Barrage, mostly due to the fact Conversion 2 at least has a unique property to it, and in theory can be useful. Exeggutor immediately learns Stomp upon evolution, and Exeggcute can replace Barrage pretty early with the much better Bullet Seed in most generations. Onto the Ghost type, there was really only one choice for me. It's the Gourgeist line's signature move Trick or Treat. This status move adds the Ghost typing to the target. It's actually pretty cool because it doesn't change their typing, it just adds to it. It can turn a dual type Pokemon into one with 3 types at once. But that's pretty much where the fun ends. While on paper this move looks like it could be useful, it really just isn't that practical. Sure, your Ghost Stab becomes super effective against most Mons, but it takes a turn to use it while taking up a move slot that could do a lot more. This effect ends upon Switch as well, which is funny because you can't even trap affected Pokemon due to their newly added Ghost typing. The only decent usage for this move I could see would be in doubles to give an ally the Ghost typing to be immune to fighting and normal. This is at best a gimmick though, and wouldn't be very viable or consistent. A similar move to Trick or Treat exists in the form of Trevenant's signature move, Forest Curse. This move sees itself as a grass type's worst signature move. The only difference between these moves is Forest Curse adds the grass type to the target rather than the ghost type. I should note that both these moves provide an Omni boost when powered up into a Z move, but even then that didn't let these moves out of the basement. This move is pretty terrible in singles for obvious reasons. If anything, it will allow the target to resist Trevenant's Grass Stab. It would add plenty of weaknesses to opposing Pokemon in doubles to allow Trevenant's ally to hit it harder, but you would almost always be outsped before you could do this, and Trevenant isn't known as the bulkiest support mon, so you could probably do this once before getting taken out. While Forest Curse is a pretty bad move, the water type doesn't really provide a lot of options for worse signature move. I would have liked to include a move like Clamp or Octazooka, but they don't quite fit the criteria. Clamp had 2 other lines able to learn it by level up, while Octazooka has been available via breeding on a few lines since its release. I am left with a bunch of great signature moves to choose from, which feels like a losing battle. It was between Primarina's Sparkling Aria and Wugtrio's Triple Dive for me. Both are really solid moves, but I feel I have to go towards Sparkling Aria. While a 90 base power water move feels bad to put here coming off that huge special attack stat, while having stab and being sound based, it just makes sense when you compare it to the other moves Primarina has. You will see Hydro Pump in its higher power more often, even with its shaky accuracy, as it is a nuke coming off Primarina's high special attack. Scald is also a better option, being 10 base power less, but having the amazing 30% chance to burn. Sparkling Aria heals a target's burn, which is almost always a bad thing to do in singles, and in doubles it would take up your turn to damage your opponent and attempt to heal their burn. Surf outclasses it even, as it has the same base power, more PP, and hits every other Pokemon on the field, allowing some team synergy options. Compared to Wugtrio's Triple Dive, it's just more useful on that mon. It has the same base power, but is 95% accurate and physical. It hitting 3 times is nice though for breaking substitutes, sturdy, and focus sash, and having additional critical hit chances. It can be countered by Rocky Helmet or abilities that punish you for making contact, and it can be argued Liquidation is a more reliable attack, but between the two, I see less use for Sparkling Aria. We will complete the starter trio in just a second, but if you want to be a part of the decision making process on some of these selections, early access to videos and more, consider becoming a certified bud by joining as a member. The fire type is one of the best types for signature moves. I did manage to find one that was pretty underwhelming though, in Turtonator's signature move Shell Trap. This move has a great 150 base power behind it, but it requires Turtonator to be hit by a physical move during the turn for it to work. This move has -3 priority, meaning it will almost always go last, so you will be vulnerable, which I know is the point of the move, but it seems like most of the time it would be a worse version to counter. Turtonator isn't turning many heads either, except maybe its own, with its base 91 special attack. It would be better off using moves like Flamethrower, Fire Blast, or Overheat. Especially now that it has Shell Smash, there really isn't any use for this move, as once you reveal it, you're pretty much playing mind games with yourself whether to use it or not. If it activated when Turtonator was hit by special moves as well, it would be a lot better, but probably still in this position. After the starter trio, we usually find ourselves getting familiar with the bug typing. I'm a big fan of this type, and it has some really great moves, but I did find a couple not great moves that could fit nicely in this list. I was originally thinking to go with Twin Needle, a pretty weak bug type move learned by Beedrill, but it is learnable by a few other Pokemon lines since Generation 5, and overall solid enough to beat out another move. The worst signature bug type move dishonor goes to the newly introduced Silk Trap. This move is only learned by Sprites and is a Protect variation. Now, a lot of Protect variations are great, like Spiky Shield and Baneful Bunker. They are Protect with extra benefits. But Silk Trap falls into the category of the Protect variants that only protect from damaging moves and leave you vulnerable to all status moves. Out of these Protect variants, Silk Trap is by far the worst in almost all situations. In singles, Sprites is seen as a lead as it has access to the rare Sticky Web and is the only Pokemon who has access to this and Spikes. It also has Toxic Spikes and Circle Throw, which further emphasizes this role. Sprites wants to get up as many hazards as possible, and racking up any chip damage is just bonus points for it. If the opponent is on a timer thanks to T-Spikes or anything else, Sprites would enjoy to have a protection move in its last move slot to guarantee more damage. Silk Trap leaving it open to all status moves is just not viable to run over Protect. Opponents could poison or burn you, breaking your sash in these scenarios, or just defog your hazards away. Sure, it has the added effect of lowering the foe's speed if they make contact, but Sprites speed is so low that this would likely never matter. Add in the fact that Sprites will often run Sucker Punch for last ditch effort chip damage, and we see a pretty useless move. The other Protect variations that don't protect against status moves have way better payoff than Silk Trap. I think it would have been more useful to act as a trapping effect upon contact. The ground type comes next, and there aren't many signature moves to pick from. In fact, there are just 8 signature moves, 3 of which belong to Zygarde, all having the same base power but different effects, and 2 belonging to the Marowak line. One of those is the pretty mediocre move Bone Club, which isn't a terrible move considering it's a 65 base power stab early game move for Cubone, but every other ground type signature move just beats it out. It has a pretty bad 85% accuracy, and its 10% chance to flinch isn't too handy since Cubone and Marowak sport a base 35 and 45 speed stat respectively. It's one of the only ground type signature moves you would never see competitively, especially considering the Marowak line gets access to a way better signature move in Bone Meringue. Rock type signature moves are in a similar position as the ground type. There aren't tons to pick from, and the ones we do have are actually pretty impressive and useful. I managed to find the ugly child in the bunch though with Colossal's Tar Shot. This move lowers the opponent's speed by 1 stage while also making them weaker to fire type moves. Considering Colossal's 30 base speed, this would pretty much just make it faster than other slow Pokemon. Making them weaker to fire can be decent in the case where you're staying in 1v1 with the opponent for a while, but the effect can just be nullified by switching out, and it might be just worth your time to hit him with a fire type move twice. Colossal is usually pretty full on move slots as well. In singles, it wants to set spikes, stealth rock, or both, while keeping hazards off its side of the field with rapid spin. With access to superior support tools like Will-O-Wisp, and wanting to carry at least 1 stab attack, it is hard to fit this move in effectively. It isn't even a question in doubles, as this mon loved to go on the offensive with its Steam Engine ability, combined with a weakness policy, and acts as a fearsome sweeper that would never waste time on using a move like Tar Shot. The poison type comes next, and I know I would have a hard time picking the best signature move of this type. Now that I mention it, if we can get this video to 1,000 likes, I will make the best signature move of each type. But the worst signature move really came down to 2 choices. Well, really 1. At first I saw Ariados's signature move Toxic Thread. It's a 100% accurate status move that poisons the target and lowers their speed by 1 stage. It actually isn't terrible and would be a useful move in a playthrough, but it only inflicts normal poison, while this mon already has access to a Toxic that never misses, and would rather be setting up T-Spikes and Sticky Web. But Toxic Thread looks like a great move when we compare it to Pyukumuku's signature move, Purify. It is also a status move and it has some quirks to using it. Pretty much you have to target a Pokemon that is status to use this move. It is meant for an ally, but also works against a foe. What Purify will do is heal the target's status condition, and if it's successful, then Pyukumuku will restore 50% of its HP. This is so situational, as most status conditions aren't as common in doubles as singles due to the faster paced gameplay. And if the other team isn't spreading status, then you have a pretty much useless move. In singles, Pyukumuku has the more reliable recover to restore its own health, so there isn't really ever a need to use this move. I made a video fixing Purify and the next few terrible signature moves coming up. You can check that out after if you want. The Psychic type brings us to not only one of the worst signature moves, but one of the worst moves in the game. This goes to Alakazam's signature move Kinesis. This move is so bad and on multiple levels. First off, its effect is lowering the target's accuracy by 1 stage. Already lackluster, as it's pretty much just Sand Attack, an early game move that gets deleted once you have semi-decent moves to replace it with. Secondly, it has 80% accuracy, which is pretty ironic because it's supposed to lower the target's accuracy, but will miss quite often itself. But my favorite part has to be Alakazam also having access to the move Flash. You know, the move you would light up the dark caves with, but never really actually used in battle. Well, Flash outclasses Kinesis in every single way. It has the same effect of lowering accuracy by 1 stage, but it is 100% accurate and has more PP. They did update Flash's accuracy from 70% in the first few generations to 100% in Gen 4, so Kinesis was technically better then, but it just goes to show how bad and forgettable this move is, that since Generation 1, it hasn't seen any buffs while Flash has. This is truly a terrible move, which sucks because it has a cool name and could be made a lot better. The Fighting type normally loses to the Psychic type, but not in the competition of who has the worst signature move. They still aren't proud of their selection though in Hitmontop's signature move Triple Kick. While Pheromosa does get access to this move now, I'm still going to count it in this list. While not as bad as Kinesis, they have the same characteristic of being outclassed by other similar moves they have access to. Triple Kick has 10 base power, 90% accuracy, and hits up to 3 times, becoming 10 base power stronger each successful hit. The reason I say it hits up to 3 times is because each hit has its own accuracy check, meaning there's a chance you miss, hit for 10 base power, hit twice for 30 base power, or hit 3 times for the super impressive 60 base power this move can inflict. Now you can compare this to Triple Axle and Laugh, as it isn't even a signature move, but has the same properties as Triple Kick, but each hit has double the power Triple Kick's hits are. Hitmontop actually has access to both of these moves, and while they're both boosted by his Technician ability, Triple Axle outclasses it entirely even without having the stab boost. You would be better off using Rolling Kick, Brick Break, or even Revenge in a playthrough. And competitively, Mach Punch, High Jump Kick, and Close Combat would be the preferred fighting type moves. Now the Flying type is another typing that has a lot of solid signature moves. I didn't find any bad ones really. I considered Toucannon's Beak Blast, but it really is a solid move for Toucannon, as the only knock on it is the negative priority, but the effect of burning the opponent if they make contact during the turn makes it a unique and useful tool, while the 100 base power is still really good. I had to give the worst Flying type signature move to Chatot Chatter. At 65 base power, this move does not hit very hard at all. The main reason Chatot would run this is because it doesn't have access to any better special Flying type moves like Hurricane or Air Slash. It has a 100% chance to confuse the opponent as of Generation 6, which is great, but banking on the opponent hitting themselves is not a very reliable strategy. A super effective Chatter is still weaker than a neutral Boom Burst, which is Chatot's go-to move. It allows Chatot to hit Ghosts a little bit harder than Heat Wave most of the time, but you are more likely going to get more use out of just packing hidden power in generations that move exists, or run a move from Chatot's solid support move pool like Encore, Defog, Tailwind, Taunt, or Toxic. U-Turn is always a must on this mon too, which kind of fills up its move slots, leaving no room for the weak Chatter. I actually do my best to help this move in Chatot in general in this video, which will be in the description. The Ice type beats the Flying type, but it can be argued this type offers a worse signature move. I noticed there weren't too many signature Ice type moves, and with Ice Beam being such a great option for most Ice types, it doesn't really matter. But then when you look at the signature moves of Kyurem White and Black, you see two huge stinkers. They gave these legend signature moves that require a charging turn. Free Shock for Kyurem Black, and Ice Burn for Kyurem White. At 140 base power each and having great secondary effects, these moves may not look too bad at first glance, but in practice they don't really offer any competitive use. In the 2 turns you take using these moves, you can easily use 2 moves that exceed the damage like Ice Beam or Icicle Spear. These moves also only have 90% accuracy, meaning you could waste a turn charging just to miss. They have 5 PP as well, which hurts if using these mons in game. I'm going to grant the dishonor of worst signature Ice type move to Ice Burn though. This is based mostly on the history of these mons movesets. Kyurem Black was without any other physical Ice type moves until Sword and Shield gave it Icicle Spear, so it would often just run a mixed attacking set with Ice Beam running off its lower special attack. But Free Shock could be ran with a Power Herb to go off in 1 turn, or, more commonly in Generation 7, could be run as a Z move with ICMZ to have a one-time 200 base power nuke, so it actually did serve a purpose at some point. With Kyurem White being specially oriented, it didn't need this as it had the fantastic Ice Beam. It would never want to wait to get an attack off. Choice Specs or Life Orb would be way more useful than a Z Crystal, and it wouldn't want to have a dead move slot that could be used for one of its great coverage options. For the Dark type, I had the initial thought of Dark Void being the worst signature move. After its huge nerf in Generation 7, it went from a pretty reliable 80% accurate sleep-inducing move to a 50% accurate move that is outclassed in singles by Hypnosis. It still would be a decent gamble in doubles, but Mythicals aren't legal in VGC, and Smeargle isn't allowed to use this move anymore, and is the real culprit for ruining this move. But this move has had a lot of success previously, and I wouldn't feel right putting it in the worst spot, especially when we have a move that has never really seen any use or success. This is Malamar's signature move Topsy Turvy. Graplock has access to it now, but it still fits my criteria. This move on its own actually could be quite decent, if only it was a TM or just more widely accessible. What it does is invert the target's stat changes, so if your opponent used Iron Defense to get +2 defense, you could use this move to swap that to a -2. On a fast Pokemon or a Pokemon with Prankster, this could be pretty useful to counter setup. Unfortunately, Malamar doesn't have any traits to make this move work. It has middling stats including speed, no resistances defensively besides a psychic immunity, and an ability that really only allows it to function one way. Malamar can really only boost its own stats with superpower, and it's not suited for a support role. Even though this move fits thematically, it is not useful on Malamar, and is actually probably better on Graplock to maybe Octolock its teammate, and then boost its defenses after a couple turns. The Fairy type is the newest type and didn't have as much time to garner lousy signature moves. Although they did give one to Klefki, and that's the signature move Fairy Lock. Fairy Lock prevents all active Pokemon from switching on the next turn. Trapping status moves themselves like Mean Look and Spiderweb aren't very good to begin with, so you can see why this move is here. It does hit both opponents in a double battle, but also affects the user and its ally, which limits your options to make this move useful. It could be decent in singles as a surprise factor move since Klefki does have the Prankster ability. You could use this move right before you feint to trap your opponent's Mon. This could secure a KO on an annoying Pokemon that keeps switching out, which could be useful for breaking stall. But this is extremely situational and requires you to have a Klefki on your team who might be sacrificing other way more useful support moves like Thunder Wave and Spikes. It's just not practical in-game or competitively, even though it could in theory be useful in certain situations. Onto the Steel type, which has a lot of amazing signature moves and not so many bad ones. I initially wanted to use Gear Up on this list, but has never been a signature move. So I was looking through, and really the only signature Steel type move I would deem suitable for this list is Hisui and Goodra's signature move Shelter. This move on its own isn't bad at all. It gives Goodra a +2 to its defense stat. This goes great with body press sets. The problem with this move is why would you ever use it over Acid Armor? Goodra gets access to both of these moves, and they have the same exact effect. The difference is Acid Armor has twice as much PP as Shelter. Shelter is just inferior because of this. It would actually see some use if Goodra didn't have Acid Armor, or if Shelter differed itself in any way, even working like Cosmic Power, boosting both defenses by 1 stage each. The Electric type is our second last typing. This typing might have the highest amount of great signature moves. Maybe I should rank them into a tier list sometime. But for the worst, there is really only one choice. I mean it. The second worst signature move I could find was Double Shock, and that is at least usable. The worst Electric type signature move goes to Heliolisk's Electrify. This is a move I mentioned in my video covering the worst move of each type, but I didn't make it the choice since it's more of a signature move. Boltund does get access to it now, but it was exclusive to Heliolisk in Generation 6 and 7, which fits my criteria. Electrify causes a target's move to become Electric type this turn, no matter the typing, which differs it from Iron Deluge, which changes normal types to Electric. But this move unfortunately lacks the priority of Iron Deluge. It also lacks any Pokemon that have Electric immunities or abilities. Now that would be pretty busted, but without this characteristic, this move doesn't really serve a purpose. In singles, all you would do is lessen the damage of attacks while using up your own turn to do so. In doubles, maybe you could pair it with a Pokemon who has an Electric immune ability or protect a ground type ally, but you have to be faster than who you target and are limited to targeting one Pokemon at a time, leaving yourself open. It just isn't worth the move slot, as the risk way outweighs the reward and is a bad gimmick at best. For the last type, we have the powerful Dragon typing. This type has really good signature moves, both physical, special, and status-wise. The worst of them though is Dialga's signature move, Roar of Time. Now I don't want to hear in the comments that you had a Toys R Us event Darkrai and Arceus, so this shouldn't count. I'm still counting this as the worst Dragon type signature move. Dialga takes Draco Meteor and Dragon Pulse all day for Dragon Stab. Roar of Time has a great 150 base power, but it's just a Hyper Beam clone that forces Dialga to recharge the next turn. Turns are so crucial that this move would never be considered. It has 90% accuracy, and since you recharge after use, there's no way to get around the negatives like you could do with a charging move in Power Herb. Dialga definitely got shafted in comparison to Palkia, who has the way better Spatial Rend to use. This move just lost to Eterna Beam, which is the same move as Roar Time, but 10 base power stronger. Roar Time isn't even a sound-based move either, which is wild, so you don't even get the niche ability to hit through substitutes with this move. Do you agree with my picks? Leave a comment on the ones you agree and disagree with. I also started YouTube memberships and I'm still learning what I can do with it, but if you want to become a certified bud and support the channel, then click the join button for some cool perks. Catch you later, buds.